Hi, Stargazers. Arik Xander here, and I'm going to be talking about the Gemini season of 2020, which is from May 20th until June 20th of the year 2020. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be guiding us through a workshop and guided meditation. So please register for that, or if you already registered, then you'll be able to watch the whole thing and do the work, which is going to help you to bring more sunlight, more energy into your life. But right now, I guess what I want to talk about is just some of the cosmic happenings and the cosmic opportunities that are available to us during the month of Gemini for 2020. And yeah, there's, I think, so much that I want to say. There's a lot that I want to go over. Probably the biggest thing that I want to talk about is the north nodes, the south node, the north node, the nodes actually, how they are shifting from this energy of Cancer, the North Node, from the energy of the home. It's about cooking. It's about, having protection and being more like with the family, right? And the node is where we are going. Like, I don't want to oversimplify it, but we see that with the North Node being in Cancer, we've been forced to stay at home in quarantine. And as the North Node is shifting into Gemini, which is an air sign, more about being social, communicating, getting more in touch with the immediate reality, then we're pushing out a little bit, and the quarantine's being lifted, and we see that reflected in our world. So I think that's a really big thing. I've been talking about that for a long time. I delineated some of the really important dates for this coronavirus that we've been going through. And I'm even having a class on the planets of pandemic and kind of understanding these apocalyptic energies, so to speak, on a more personal and collective level and what we can do. But we're seeing a lot of really good improvements is what I want to say, but we still need to be cautious. We still need to be like intelligent and smart. That's what Gemini is all about. And also we're going to have the new moon in Gemini, which is actually starting a day after the sun moves into Gemini. And that's a really big one, because it's almost like these months where the new moon is starting right with the solar ingression when the sun moves into a sign. It's like extra energy. And plus, Gemini is like it's the king or the queen of air, and then Cancer is the king or the queen of water, and then Leo is the king or the queen of fire. So we have a lot of, the elements are really seeking balance for the next 3 months, and that begins with Gemini. So there's really a lot of opportunity for us to really take care. Oh, and I even want to mention we're still going through that 7-week process. It's going to end in Gemini. So yeah, there isn't a shortage of opportunity to be able to make the changes that we need to personally make to contribute to the collective, especially because Gemini, being that air sign, is all about commitment. It's all about choices, and it's all about bringing things into one, which is something that is very difficult for us to do. So I think one of the most important things that we need to understand is, of course, that ancient saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. And if we see something that is reflected back to us and we don't like it, okay? For example, if we see someone on the street who we don't like this person or something about this person, well, that's reflecting something back upon the eye of the beholder, right? Just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So rather than reject that, during Gemini, we are being shown where we need to unite with something that we are rejecting, and to take self-responsibility about that as well. So that is something that is going to really give us a lot of power in terms of how we are processing things that are going on in our immediate world, and how we can also really commit to our path. So the new moon in Gemini is really all about commitment. So I will talk more about that in a separate video. But in Gemini, it's like we want to become more aligned with ourselves. We want to become more centered and balanced within ourselves, because if we have so many rejections about things in the world, then what happens is that when we get triggered, when we see things that are like just really bothering us and we don't know how to deal with them, things are going to start to unravel on, any level of life. Now, when we listen to gossip, or when we listen to slander, which is the misuse of our air element, right? Then we create situations like the coronavirus, or even smaller viruses or smaller flus, because this whole thing came about with the coronavirus, as I've said from the beginning, had come about from our gossip and our evil talk and slander as a collective. Okay? When we are being triggered with fear or rejection, right? And a lot of people are harboring that within themselves, and they listen, or we listen to the news, then it just triggers that fear and that hatred within us, and then we start thinking about it, and then we start talking about it, and then eventually we start acting on it, and then that's what our reality shows. So I can just tell you from also my own personal experience that when I'm talking or listening to people about the coronavirus, or the consequences of the coronavirus, because there will be long-term consequences, there's no doubt about it, but let's just stay in the present at this time, right? If, and this applies to anything, if that person brings a perspective that triggers me, or that, and thereby contaminates my understanding and my reality, then it starts to spread that fear, right? So assuming the person has a lot of fear, judgment, and hatred. So you guys, I'm giving you permission, not that you need it, that if somebody is just really negative about something, you don't need to really listen to them. You need to take it to heart, of course, and see if it's triggering you, but it's not something that you need to unite with. You can discard it. You need to develop that intelligence to know this is for me, this isn't for me. Now, the tricky part of that is that the ego mind might convince us that something isn't relevant to us, and it actually might be. So how do you know the difference? Well, that's the question, one of the biggest questions during the month of Gemini, that if you are triggered, then it's for you, but then you need to process it out through transformation using your spiritual tools. But meaning if it invokes, if it instills fear, or if there's some kind of reaction, then it's for you, because you need to see that part of yourself and grow. But if you feel like you're above it, or if it's just, beneath you, or it doesn't apply to you immediately, then it might be a little bit tricky. It might be ego. So first, as always, it's a good idea to be humble, which is one of the qualities of the Gemini meridian in the body. If you are being humble and really checking with yourself first, and then only then you will know if it's for you or not, because it's always about this inner state of reflection, and not just holding on to unresolved issues like fear and hatred. So during Gemini, especially this year, these emotions, they are going to be triggered, and what's going to happen is that we will become tempted to shift off of our path. So how many times has it happened that something occurs, the situation arises, and you want out? You just run for the hills. It's almost like we try to punish ourselves by punishing others with abandonment and fleeing. But really, during the month of Gemini, what we need to do is to stay on the path, stay connected to ourselves so that we're not just running away, but into some fear and hatred, wind, right? Like having some wind just carry you to some weird reality, but to rather, run towards a better reality. So with that, what I want to recommend, of course, is the Gemini Astrology blend, which is part of the Astrology collection, like my healing system of astrology. And then you can just rub it in your hands and smell it, put it in your aroma lamp. I'll also come out with some, more tips on ways to use it. So please stay tuned. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram. Like I'm going to be, having all kinds of tips how to use the astrology collection. But it's something that can help a lot with remaining humble and allowing yourself to really gather all these different, lights of yourself so that you're not just rejecting all the time. Now, because we find ourselves in such a critical time in the world, we also have a lot of opportunities for blessings. We have, May 5th, I talked about how it was a really big day where the energies were shifting. On that day, it was actually like around that time, a lot of the restrictions were being lifted, which is a really good, powerful thing. And then on the summer solstice that we're going to have at the end of the month of Gemini, but I want to mention it now for preparation, we have a really big opportunity to block out a lot of this quarantine Cancer energy that I was talking about. So what we want to do until then is to really stay the course, really become committed and responsible for our actions. And the new moon in Gemini is going to help a lot with that. And then the full moon of Gemini, which is going to be in Sagittarius, is going to help us get rid of anything that is preventing us from really doing that consistently. So when we would rather get angry or hateful or fearful, stay the course. Do not give up. That's what this is all about. Stay true to the self and to the choices that you made when you were not emotional. So if you find yourself being in that reactive mind, because Gemini can be in two minds about things, right? This is the energy of Gemini that makes us doubt the choices that we've made. Try to get back to that place where you made the choice in the first place, so that you're not questioning everything inappropriately. Because questioning everything can, again, bring about that doubt, which weakens resolve, weakens the intentions, weakens the manifestation process. So we want to really stay strong about these things, because when we are just trying to escape, we make these cracks in our reality so that the energy that comes in doesn't want to stay. But we need to keep that energy here so that then we can syndicate, or actually share that energy, because when we share that energy, the universe wants to give us, God wants to give us more energy so that we have more to share. But when we are like contracting and just, receiving like this negative energy of fear and hatred that people also want to spread, right? There's a difference between like spreading some kind of infection, but sharing that healing energy. Then we become selfish and dark, and that's not where we want to go with this Gemini energy. So there's a lot of opportunity for massive transformation, and especially as we're purifying those channels of manifestation and really healing ourselves from all the negative fate that we've accumulated, and becoming more committed to our path, becoming more committed even when it's not suiting our ego, or if it's kind of triggering us, right? That's when we really need to commit, because it's going to give us even more energy. So it's, again, about falling in love with that energy. This is connected to the archetype of the lovers, of course. Venus is retrograde in Gemini at the moment. So it's really challenging our ability to keep still and keep quiet, and to, again, really understand about love on a deeper level, where we're looking inside and we're seeing like the best way to express that energy, that Venus in retrograde energy, is by speaking about love, healing our words, how we use our words, because when we're speaking in a bad way, then, you know, we hurt the person listening, we hurt the person we're talking about or the situation we're talking about, and then we're hurting ourselves. There's so much just endless ego chatter going on. We don't need to subscribe. We don't need to listen to that. So I really like this because we want to really, as the restrictions are being lifted, as I've been talking about, that there's going to be space that's created. So we need to put positive energy into those spaces so that we're not refilling it with negative energy. So then we're going to have a lot. Okay, so we have 3 different phases of the Gemini season. In phase 1, that's also when we're having the new moon. So it's about developing more intuition, meditating, using the words in a good way. Also, that Gemini light is going to manifest with that energy that we really need right now to hear, to turn up the volume of intuition and turn down the volume of the ego chatter. And actually, we just started, Aurelia and I just started a podcast called Ageless, which you can listen to, which is going to help with that as well. This is some good high vibration words that you can listen to that's going to increase your energy throughout the Gemini cycle as well. And then Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is going to move into Cancer, which is, you know, it's good because it's going to put our focus on the beginning and ending of things. And it's like, it's going to almost like give mastery to our thoughts, which is really good. And then the next phase of Gemini on June, it's going to include the energy of June 4th, which is the Gates of Paradise meditation. So I'm going to recommend that you definitely get in on that. It's going to help us connect with our soulmate, to enhance our relationships. It's also going to connect us to the energy of endlessness so that we can have longevity. And again, it's that energy of commitment that's going to give us the energy we need to see things through without any interruption. And then the last phase, in that second phase also, we're going to have the full moon. And then in the last phase, Mercury is going to go retrograde, and then we're going to have the sun entering into Cancer, which is going to be the Cancer season. And then we have the summer solstice, but that I will talk about in another video. But Mercury retrograde, we're going to want to check within ourselves, keep that good introspective work up, even though the quarantine is being lifted, because we don't want to have second waves, right? So we need to stay vigilant. We need to stay on top of ourselves and really keeping that energy of introspection high, because if we don't, then we start to contaminate the world again. And that's not what we want to do, because God forbid something worse happens because we're not learning the lessons. And that's usually what happens, right? So with that said, if you have any questions about this Gemini season, please leave them in the comments below, or you can message me or send me an email. We are going to be getting into the virtual ritual, the Sun in Gemini meditation, and it's going to be about commitment, bringing that light for that energy that you need, because everything is coming from the sun, that energy, and it's being filtered through that constellation, through that archetype of Gemini for those 30 days. So we want to be able to tap into that energy and control that energy so that we can create the reality as we want. It'll enhance the new moon, it'll enhance the full moon, and it'll enhance everything that we need also within our charts. So like I said, if you haven't registered for that, please do it in the link below, or you can go to arikxander.com and register. And for the rest of you, we're going to get into the meditation in a minute.